Hello and welcome everybody to our webinar on automating some invoice payments. We will be starting in 1 minute. We're just gonna give a couple extra seconds for people who are just now arriving. So thank you for your patience and thank you for being on time. Okay, 11:01, let's get this thing going. Again, thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to join us. And today we're gonna be going over what we call Bold Parser, and it's a way to automate your invoice payments. And it uses AI, so it learns more and more as you do it, and it makes your life easier, essentially. So next slide, please, Sam. All right, so my name is Nick. I'm the sales manager here at AlphaBOLD, and I'm joined by Sam Khan. He's the practice lead for AI and IoT, and he's going to be taking us through the majority of these slides as well as a demo today. And he's got 15 years of experience on his belt, so super knowledgeable, and we are lucky to have him here to show us what we can do with Bold Parser. So next slide, please. And as far as what we will be going over today, it should be pretty quick, but we're going to kind of look at how challenging manual processes are with as far as getting invoices into your accounting system and how much time it can actually take, which then translates into costs. And then we're going to show you how AI can actually eliminate those costs and cut down on the time needed to do all that, as well as look at the invoice automation flow that we use, and then how we kind of use SharePoint to give you and anyone else in your organization some visibility into those invoices. And then we'll demo it as far as how it works within QuickBooks and NetSuite, and then open it up for some Q&A. So next slide, please. And I think, yeah, this is where I'll pass it up to Sam, but if you guys have any questions during this presentation, please enter them in the questions box. I will be monitoring those and we'll try to answer them as much as possible. And then right now, before we get going, I would like to hear some feedback. So I'd like to launch a couple of polls and see what you guys are doing and get a little insights into who's here today. So first poll is, what accounting system are you using right now? We got a couple of the big ones up there. If you are using a different one, just leave it blank, but we would appreciate any kind of feedback. It helps us make these webinars better and more relevant for you. Looks like, as of right now, QuickBooks is in the lead. That's kind of expected that. We use QuickBooks as well, so makes sense. And then we got Dynamics and SAP coming up in second and third. All right, and 3 more seconds, gonna close this up. All right, yeah, QuickBooks is definitely the winner by far there. And then I got one more poll. Thank you guys again for your feedback here. Let's launch this. All right, so how are you currently doing your invoices? How are you putting them into your systems? Is it all manual and you're just tired of it? Are you doing some manual, some you are stepping into that automated world and you love it and you love to free up more time by going full automated? And then fully automated, but you just want to check out what's going on out here. Okay, so it looks like we got a even split between all manual and some manual. And then we got a couple of people here who are fully automated, and congrats to you guys taking that step into the digital age. All right, gonna close this up. Thank you guys again for your input. We really do appreciate it. And Sam, I will let you take it away from here.
All right. Hello, everybody. I welcome you all to this webinar. As Nick mentioned, I head the IoT and AI competencies here at AlphaBOLD. So right at the outset, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about the problem that we aim to address here, and that is the manual processing of the invoices. Some key pain points are it's time consuming to process the incoming invoices. And it also happens to be error prone if you were to like create those entries manually. These two factors alone result in delayed payments and increased processing cost. Moving on. Okay, this specific slide relates to some facts and stats. If I were to put things in a holistic perspective visually, here is what I see. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about staff time division here. As per research, it's found that 84% of AP staff's time is actually consumed in doing tasks which are related to processing the actual invoices. I mean, these tasks could actually be, scanning the invoice documents and arranging them in folders or pigeonholes or drawers or what have you, and then logging into the accounting systems and manually keying in the entries. But only 16% of the time is actually spent on processing the invoices in essence. So if I were to look at this thing in another way, so companies with little to no automation spend on average about $15.70 per invoice, whereas whereas with automation the cost is drastically reduced to $6.31. And here I'm actually quoting a study conducted by the Institute of Management and Administration. And last but not the least, this is a very interesting statistic. So the unpaid invoices actually add up to almost $825 billion in US alone. So that's how deep the hole is. And it's backed up by a study conducted by a leading credit lending company. And it was done a few years back, but if anything, that cost must have gone up considering the prevailing pandemic times that we are all living through. Moving on. So in this specific slide, and now that we've discussed some problems also, it's time to talk a little bit about the solution. So AP automation, which is like a part of robotic process automation, it enables companies to process vendor invoices without any human intervention by providing a digital workflow to manage the steps. Now, this same methodology can actually be applied onto other business transactions as well, such as purchase orders or inventory reports or what have you. But since this webinar is focusing on the invoice automation, so I'm going to be sticking with the subject matter here. Okay, so why automation? Um, So let's talk a little bit about the benefits on a higher level, if you will. So first and foremost, significant labor savings if you were to go with automation, increased productivity, which is closely related with the first point, faster invoice cycles, fewer payment errors, and more early pay discounts. So experts say that more than 80% of the vendors offer early payment discounts to encourage the businesses uh, to pay on time, but only 4% of the businesses are actually utilizing these discounts. So in a nutshell, automation is a win-win for all here. Moving on, now that we have established the benefits, it's time to talk a little bit about the solution that we have built. Enter Bold Parser. So as you can see, we have the ability to source the invoice data from multiple channels. Some examples could be email attachments if you're receiving invoices over the email channel. Web clients, we help develop custom UIs and forms and applications to help the upload process of the invoices to the solution. We also help develop custom mobile applications that you can share with your vendors to help in the submission of their invoices. And last but not the least, cloud storage services such as Amazon S3, Microsoft OneNote, Google Drive, etc. So once we have ingested the invoice, the given invoice from a particular channel, it's time to process the invoice. And this specific step includes these following subsets: pre-processing the data, running the AI-based document reader, which is actually pre-trained on the given invoices format. And that is done to extract the text data from the PDF, for example. And once we are able to extract the required information out from the PDF file, then it's time to furnish this extracted information in the accounting system supported format. And lastly, we use special connectors to load/create the invoice in the given accounting system. On the right-hand side, you're seeing that we have highlighted a few, applications or business systems there. But as a matter of fact, there could be any business application or any ERP system or an accounting software that we can help you integrate with. So on top of the baseline solution, we also provide workflows for tasks such as error handling, human intervention for required approvals, and backing up the invoice data for regulatory compliance reasons, and things of that sort. So with that being said, in this specific slide, I'm just going to be laying the groundwork for the demo that we have prepared for this webinar. So before I get into the thick of things, I'm just going to take a minute and talk a little bit about the business scenario here. I talked briefly about some of the studies that were conducted in the past, but this specific business scenario relates to my own company, AlphaBOLD. And I'm going to be showing you a sample invoice that we received from one of our vendors by the name of Synix. So AlphaBOLD, we primarily are a service provider and a Microsoft CSP, which is a cloud solution provider. So we buy licenses from Synix and sell to our customers. Some examples are Power BI licenses, Azure, GCP, etc. So we receive a lot of invoices from Synix, and it takes around 4 hours each week to add those invoices in our accounting system. Okay, so if you were to consider that if we have like 4 similar vendors, I mean, this is the calculation that we have done here. So if it takes us 4 hours to process such invoices, and we have 4 vendors, and we have 52 weeks in a year, this is the number that we have come up with, which is like total hours per year that we spend. This is basically an estimation here. So if you were to apply a fixed dollar amount here to these hours, so this is an estimated cost that is being spent close to $25,000 a year if we were to manually process those invoices. So with the business scenario explained, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the process flow here of the solution or the demo that we have prepared for this webinar. So we have kept it simplified, but in this specific slide, I'm just going to be detailing out the steps that we have taken for the automation when it comes to the demonstration. So in this use case, we are going to be, receiving an invoice over the email channel, let's say from a vendor, to this specific email address, which is designated apaccounting@alphabold.com. So this triggers a flow at the back end that helps saves the invoice as a backup on SharePoint. And I'm actually tying that back with one of the things that I mentioned earlier, that in some cases, if you're all manual, so in most cases, the accounting team actually maintains pigeonholes or drawers or folders in which they're arranging all those invoices. So that whole thing is all automated. It's all gone. So we are actually maintaining all those in SharePoint. And once the file is backed up, it goes through the parser. So the parser helps extract the meaningful information out from the PDF file. And lastly, we integrate with these 2 systems, Intuit QuickBooks Online and Oracle NetSuite 2, and we create corresponding invoices in those systems on the fly. Okay. So before I start, I'm sorry.
Sam, I do have a couple questions that came in here.
Sure.
Before you jump into it. One was, does this require a specific hardware?
So the solution that we have built is actually pretty flexible, right? So it all depends upon your own requirements. If you need to have this thing deployed locally in your own environment, we can help build you a solution that can actually be deployed on-prem. But the demo that I've prepared is actually built on Azure Cloud. So if you want to go the cloud way, then you don't need specific hardware to be installed locally.
Perfect. And then one more question is, does this work in any language?
At this point in time, we have developed a solution to look through information that is made available in English language. But that is something that we are currently experimenting with, which is basically parsing different languages.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
No problem. Any more questions?
That is it for right now.
Okay. All right, so before I get to the demo, I'm just going to be, and I've also explained the flow here. So this is, I mean, these are the folders that we are currently maintaining in SharePoint. So if I were to send an invoice out to the designated email address that I showed on the previous slide, it should land here in this folder in Receive Directory. Again, mimicking the scenario in which you would actually be doing it physically if you were if you are processing invoices manually. And once the invoice is actually created in those target systems, then it's automatically moved to the created folder. We can further enhance this solution as per your requirements if you want that there should be another folder created by the name of processed or what have you, and that is when the file is going to be moved to that folder only when the payment is actually made in the target accounting system. So that file is actually be moved to that folder also. So there is going to be no need for manually maintaining all the pigeonholes and the folders. With that said, I'm going to show you how things look like in uh, QuickBooks for now. So we have created this vendor by the name of Synnex. If I go in there, you can see that there is nothing in there as we speak. And let's see how things look like in NetSuite. Okay, I go to transactions and I put see the list. Okay, so there on this screen, you're seeing a list of invoices. I mean, those are all dummy invoices. Currently, there is no invoice created against a vendor by the name of Synnex. So just keep that in mind. And I'm just going to be starting off this flow real quick by sending an email off to apaccounting@alphabold.com. So bear with me for a minute. This is the invoice. Back. And I'm sending it off to this email account. I'm gonna say this is, I mean, the subject doesn't matter, but still is invoice PDF. Okay, so when I send it out, I should be receiving that in the same inbox as well, but it should also trigger a flow at the back end. Okay, I go to SharePoint and look at the receipt folder. Just give it a minute or a few seconds. Right, so there we have it. So we are able to receive this invoice in this directory. I'll open this one up for your reference. This is the invoice that I just sent out via email. And if I were to open this one up that we received in the received folder, quote unquote, hang on, let me fix the size here. Okay. So all right, so it's the same invoice. If you were to see the invoice number here, 2052911, it matches up with the invoice here. Okay, so in this specific invoice, what the key pieces of information that we're reading through or we are extracting out. I mean, one is the total amount or the total invoice amount. Again, if I were to go down here a little bit, you see the line items here as well. So we are also reading the information from these line items, but we are specifically interested in these two columns, subscription and the extended price. Okay, we can extract more information also, but for the sake of this demo, I mean, those are the few pieces that we're picking off while we are making our transaction go through the whole automation process. Okay, with that being said, I'm just going to go back in here, close it off. Okay. Okay, so it takes a minute or so before the transaction is actually created in the end systems. So we are just going to wait for a little while, and we should be seeing this specific invoice here in this folder created in a minute.
And while we wait for this, a question
Mm-hmm.
came through and is asking about handwritten invoices. Does that
Yeah,
have an impact on this process?
this is a very good question and very pertinent one as well. So, since we are reading through the document using AI, so with any given AI model, it's all dependent upon upon the sample, right? And about the input data as well. So, the more samples that we have available, the better it is for the training of that specific model. But there are multiple factors that are involved in here because I mean the quality of the image helps, and also the handwriting matters as well. So the characters need to be legible. So if they are not, then you need even more data so that you can train your model to that level of accuracy. But for now, what we are supporting at this point in time is a computer-generated invoice. Any more questions?
Perfect. That's great.
Right on. So there we have it. We have this data created, rather moved here in this folder, in the created folder. Previously, it was available in the received folder. So it has clearly been moved. So let's take a look at how things look like in QuickBooks for the moment. So I go here, I look at expenses, go again, suppliers, uh, look at Cynics. Voila, there we go. So we have this invoice created here. Let me pull up the source file. So if you were to look closely, this is the total invoice amount. And this matches up exactly with the input file, which is 493.92 US dollars. And if we were to look through the line items here, so the extended price for line 1 is 23.52, for line 2 is 470.40, and I move it here. Yeah, I move it here. Then if you were to see the description, which was under the subscription column here, the first line item is Exchange Online Plan 1, and the other one is Office 365 E3. So, so these pieces of information have also been successfully extracted. Let's take a look at NetSuite. So let me refresh the screen. Okay, so there we have it. So a new invoice is now created with this vendor name Synex. If I were to click on view, all right. So in the summary section here, you're seeing the subtotal again is matching up perfectly with this invoice. Is 493.92 is 493.92. Whereas this specific ERP system is actually it's a standard transaction implementation here. It's adding 6.5% tax on it, which amounts to $32, and eventually it's doing its own calculation and making the total to be $526.02. But this is the value that was picked off from the incoming invoice. Let's look for other pieces of information also, if you will. So invoice number here, if you see, this is the external invoice number 2052911, 2052911. This is matching up exactly. This invoice number is system generated. NetSuite created that. And on the line items, if you can see, Exchange Online Plan 1, you can see Office 365 E3, both these fields are matching. And if I go here, 23.52 and 470.40, the price here, 23.52, 470.40. So all these values, they actually match up that were there on the incoming invoice. So as you just saw, that there was no need to manually log into the system, have the invoices created by hand, and no, there was no need to maintain any folders or anything of that sort. You have the invoices backed up. Actually, there is a whole process that takes one invoice from one folder to another folder, and so on and so forth, which is all part of this whole automation here. And there are a couple more things that you also need to keep in mind, is the fact that if you were to like make it even more complex, the AI model actually gives a confidence level as well on the fields that it's able to detect. So if the confidence level is low on the detection of some piece of information, we can actually put a trigger on such scenarios, and we can route those transactions off to the staff and ask them to manually create those transactions in cases where those values are not easily readable, and that we can actually build a fail-safe mechanism in there to ensure that incorrect data is not actually created in the accounting systems at the end. With that being said, you also need to keep in mind that this whole solution is not OCR alone, which is the AI-based document reader, but it is a whole solution that has so many different components to it, which add a lot of value in there. But we understand that the requirements could be different across various prospects and customers. So if you're interested in exploring this opportunity, we'd be happy to. You can contact our sales team, and we'd be happy to go through your requirements, and we can recommend a solution that is going to be tailor-made for your requirements. With that being said, if I were to go back to my slide deck here, real quick, this is for the technical folks. So this specific demo, as I mentioned earlier, in a response to a question that was posed to us, this is all built into Azure. So we receive system invoices, and in designated inbox, a flow is triggered at the back end. So we are using Power Automate to help implement the whole flow, if you will, and that helps in the creation of the file in the backup folder. It also helps in triggering the AI model, which is consumed because it's exposed as an API, and the model then responds back with the information that is extracted. The context is applied to the extracted text, and within the flow, what we do is we perform mapping transformations which are needed for the eventual integration with the end systems. And we are using Azure functions where the code that is specifically written for the integration executes. So this whole solution is all cloud enabled, by the way. But as I said before, this if that is not the requirement, then a custom solution that can actually be deployed on-prem can also be developed, and we can add more channels per se to this solution by way of receiving the invoices from channels such as mobile applications or custom forms or storage services. Okay, I think with that, I'm just going to hand the control back to Nick. If there are any more questions, please
Yeah, we
feel
do
free to
have
ask.
we have a couple questions that came in. One being, can the system post against POs?
Sorry, come again?
Can the system post against POs or purchase orders?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this presentation, yeah, the same methodology can actually be applied on any type of document. But since the topic of the webinar was more invoices related, then that is the demo that we built. But definitely,
Perfect.
we can
And
have the parser run on the POs as well. Yeah.
awesome. And then also, what if a company, or what if someone uses multiple company files in QuickBooks and one QuickBooks with one AP inbox? Can this process route to different companies?
Absolutely. I mean, it all depends on how the flow is designed, and there is definitely that capability available within the tool set that can help automate this specific requirement.
Okay, great. And then a question came in about the logos. So some are typed out, but some are images. Does the
Absolutely.
fact that it's an image mess with it at all?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and again, a very pertinent one as well. Yes, the AI model can actually be trained. I mean, a classic example is Apple's logo, which is an apple or an image, versus Microsoft's logo, which is text. So it's all about training the model and letting the model detect a logo, and we can actually link that with the identity of a given vendor or a company.
Okay, great. And then someone did ask, which AI parser are we using?
Again, a very good question. So again, it's a solution. So what we do is, I mean, we build our own parsers also, and but we also experiment with the parsers that are built by third-party companies. We use Microsoft's form recognizer service as well, and then there's a company out there in Europe, and we use their parsers also, and they actually come up with good results as well.
Okay. And then I think the last question we have so far is, does this work with QuickBooks Enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, eventually, it all depends upon how this connector is actually developed. QuickBooks Online exposes APIs, so it could be any system. So it depends on the system as to how it exposes its application layer. If it's providing an API or a daemon client or any other integration methodology, then that's all we need, and we can hook up to any system using whichever way is available out there. So we are pretty flexible in this regard. So yeah, it's possible.
Okay. Another question would be, or I guess the kid through is, can there be a manual approval step before the invoice is moved to system for payment?
Most definitely. I mean, if I were to go back here, just give me a second. Yeah. So I mean, if you were to see here, yeah, we actually do develop workflows on top of the baseline solution here. So I mean, if there is a requirement that, hey, if the invoice amount is is greater than a specific threshold value, then that should not be automated. It should actually be sent for approval. So yes, we can definitely plug in the workflows that would enable the AP staff to be doing approvals manually.
Great. And then does the system handle partial receipts against POs?
Sorry, come again. Which receipts?
Does it handle partial receipts against a purchase order?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends upon the kind of document you have. So it could be parcel receipt, could be any type of document. We have the capability of reading through that.
Okay, so it'll recognize that maybe we didn't get the full amount against the PO?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, it depends upon the existing workflow here. So for example, if you're receiving the invoice and you are creating that invoice, then you can actually write a process on top of it that is going to be helping you with partial approvals or partial uh, processing of the information in a way. So yeah, I mean, that is something that can actually be built on top of this whole solution, and also it might as well require some solution to be deployed to the end system as well. So
Okay.
yeah, that in a nutshell, it's possible technically.
Okay, great. I think that might be the last of the questions. So we can move on to the last slide, and we'll keep it open in case anybody does have a question that pops into their mind.
Nick, can I also chime in on that partial receipt question?
Of course.
So what we have demonstrated right now is more geared towards the account payable team. So you're receiving the invoices and you are making them into your accounting system. And as Sam pointed out, we don't only just work with NetSuite and QuickBooks, but we can work with any accounting system. So the system integrates with multiple accounting systems. But as you make your invoice into your accounting system, it's within that accounting system that you would probably be processing the payments, right? So if it's a partial receipt against a complete invoice, then on the integration side with SharePoint, where we mark that, okay, payment has been received and move it to the received folder, we can absolutely automate it in whatever shape or form you want. So for example, unless the payment has been fully received, we can add in a folder there that says partial receipts invoices. So we can move it in there, and you will be able to, and we can also put in a status that says partial receipts. So your team would be able to go in and say, search on all the invoices that are partially paid out, and then you can just sort by that as well. But the actual process of the receiving the payment obviously has to be controlled and taken care of by your accounting team within your accounting system. But as far as auditing is concerned, so that you don't move those partially paid invoices onto the paid invoice folder, that can definitely be taken care of in Bold Parser.
Awesome. And for those listening and watching, that was our VP of Consulting, Tayeb Ali. We did have a couple more questions come in on top of that. One is, once set up for specific vendors/invoices, how easy is it to add new vendors/invoices? Can we do this on our own, or would we need AlphaBOLD to set someone up?
I mean, both, it depends. I mean, even as I mentioned earlier, we do help develop custom utilities that eventually are used by the staff. But we definitely have the capability of, setting things up on our end as well, if we are actually managing it on our end. So either which way, the situation is, we do have the capability of flexibly adhering to those requirements.
Okay. Another question, can it handle complex systems such as different type of POs, CAPEX, services and goods, multiple lines with complex descriptions, and multiple receipts on each line of the PO? That was a big question.
Tayyip, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I want to explain a little bit what we have achieved with this RPA, robotic process automation, using Bold Parser. So what we have successfully done is we have figured out a way using our AI model to train your system or Bold Parser on any document. And then we have integrations with accounting system. So right now, what we demonstrated to you was the demonstration for an invoice that came in, and then it was parsed. And as you saw in the demo, that we can not only parse the header information, we can also parse the line level information. The same thing we can apply to POs as well. So if you have certain vendors and you generate a PO against those vendors before they provide you services or materials, you can have the PO being generated and automatically be parsed by Bold Parser and inputted into your system, because that input process is through our integration. We've done a ton of integrations, not just on the purchasing side, but also on the sales side. So any objects that you have in your accounting system where you want us to integrate that with, we should be able to do. So with these two technologies combined, our parsing capability and our integration capability, not just the PO side of things, but let's say if you have some additional information, additional documents, some expense receipts, and so on and so forth, we should be able to leverage Bold Parser and extend it to handle all those scenarios as well.
Great. Let's see, I think that covers the questions as of right now. So Sam, can you move it to the next slide, please?
Absolutely.
I think this is where we are, yeah, pretty much wrapping it up. Like I said, it was going to be a quick, easy demo and webinar. And if you guys did like what you saw and think this is something that could be beneficial to you and save you time and money, let's talk. We can discuss kind of what you are currently doing, and then basically determine if Bold Parser can actually save you time and money. I don't see how it couldn't, but we'd always like to hear your feedback on that. And if we see that there is an opportunity for Bold Parser to work for your company, we can give you a free discovery and design. And that way you have a map of how this works and how it will work for you. And from there, we can set it all up for you. So if you can go to the next slide, Sam, we have all of our contact information on this next one, hopefully, I think. Yep, there it is. So please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we will reach out to you. We will send you the slide deck as well as the recording, so that way you can review it or pass it off to your colleagues to see if they like it. And otherwise, we look forward to connecting with you. Hopefully you enjoyed this presentation, and hopefully it was informative. And have a great rest of your day.